Hi there. Welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast with Lisa Schlossberg. I'm your host, Lisa Schlossberg, a licensed social worker, certified health coach, personal trainer, and yoga instructor. If you, like I have, struggle with your relationship with food, eating, and body image, I am here with this podcast to guide you into healing the relationship you have with yourself through a trauma-informed, holistic, and mind-body-soul approach. Together, we can support you in building a lifestyle of more peace, freedom, safety, and power. Hello again. Welcome back to the Out of the Cave podcast. This is your girl, Lisa Schlossberg, and I think we've arrived, my friends. I think today in chapter 12 of this solo series, we have arrived just about at the beginning of the conversation. It took us 12 episodes to arrive at the beginning. How about that? You know what's so funny? What I'm thinking of right now? It was just the other day, one of my friends said to me, I have a couple quick questions that will probably take like 2 minutes for you to answer. And my thought was, has it ever taken me 2 minutes to answer a question? Has it ever been possible for me to do that? So anyway, here we are. The reason I say we've arrived is because I feel like we are getting into what I really came here to talk about, the solo series, which is intentional weight loss, in more detail. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming along on this journey with me so far. Today, I really don't think that I have follow-ups from the last episode. Today, what I want to do is like really just dive in because this is such a continuation of that conversation. So less follow-up, more addition. So here we go. We're just diving in. That's what I feel today. So when I was thinking about how I wanted to continue discussing things like radical acceptance and non-attachment and being in this place of feeling safe in your body as you are while also making changes, I thought about a scene from Harry Potter, of course, that I share at my retreats and I include in my coaching program in the curriculum because it is such a great visual of what I'm trying to teach you. And the reason I think it matters to explain it and see it through this lens of this visual is because it is important to me that we understand the physiological component of this work. And that's the hard thing about doing this via podcast is I don't get to be sitting with you in real time, supporting you in feeling the things in your body. And so I want to offer this as a resource for you so that you can really try on the energy. Like when I say feeling safe to be where you are, even though you're uncomfortable, when I say don't just fake it till you make it, but embody it until you habituate to it. When I talk about radical acceptance and non-attachment, it's important. What I'm saying here is it's important that they're not just concepts and theories. They have to really be embodied. You have to be feeling that energy in your body for it to, quote unquote, actually work. So what I want to share with you is the scene from Harry Potter, the Devil's Snare scene. Those of you that are familiar with Harry Potter, you know where I'm going with this likely. And for those of you that are not familiar with this, I'm going to do my best to explain what it is I'm talking about. So first, I will just say that especially if you're not familiar with this scene, but even if you are, I invite you to just type in Devil's Snare to YouTube and watch the clip. So again, you have this in your mind. I've heard so many people since I started sharing this tell me that it has been so helpful to be able to see it and watch it. So do that if you want. That's your optional homework assignment this time. So Devil's Snare. So what happens is Harry, Ron, and Hermione fall down this trap door essentially, and they fall into this plant-like thing. I think that's what Ron calls it. It's a plant-like thing. So it's like viney. It looks like roots almost of a tree. And so they fall into this like bed of tree roots. That's kind of what it looks like. And then very immediately after they fall into it, the vines start like wrapping around them and like around the Ron, Harry, and Hermione's bodies. And they start kind of wiggling and trying to get out of it and fighting it and, you know, trying to like break free. And then Hermione, of course, knows what Devil's Snare is and can recognize it. And she knows that the harder you try to get out of it and the harder you try to fight it, the more it's going to wrap around you. And in her words, it'll only kill you faster. And so Hermione knows that what she has to do in order to not be killed by the Devil's Snare is relax. She knows that she has to stop fighting it. And so she takes a deep breath and she closes her eyes and we watch her be released from the Devil's Snare. And Harry, who's also really scared and worried and not familiar with how this works, knows to trust her guidance because he sees that it just worked. And so he does exactly what I'm telling you to do. He just fakes it till he makes it. He just embodies it until he habituates to it. He just tries on the energy of relaxation. Okay? He's uncomfortable. He's scared. He feels like he's going to die. He is literally in this bed of rooted vines that can kill him. And what he does is practice exactly what he just saw Hermione do, which is close his eyes, take a few deep breaths, right? So this is embodying the energy of safety, even though he is scared for his life. And then the same thing happens. We see it work for him too. And he is released from the Devil's Snare. And Ron, classic Ron, is freaking out and panicking and like trying to wiggle his way out of it. And we see what's happening with Ron, which is he's getting more and more stuck. It's getting tighter and tighter as it wraps around him. And luckily, Hermione remembers the spell and shoots some light into the Devil's Snare because Devil's Snare hates sunlight. And then that is how she saves Ron's life. Okay. And then, of course, he falls through the Devil's Snare to meet Hermione and Harry. And he says the hilarious line to end the scene that is, well, it's a good thing we didn't panic. So that's the Devil's Snare scene. But I really, really invite you to watch it so you have a sense of what it really looks like. But to me, I remember, okay, so the reason that I started originally showing this at retreats with Nicole Sachs around chronic pain is because I remember feeling my IBS when I had like a really bad digestive issues. That's what it felt like. I remember thinking that it felt as though my intestines were Devil's Snare. Like they were tight and contracted and they were, I don't know, it felt like they had this like grip on me from the inside of my body. It was so very uncomfortable. And so I remember the way that I used to teach it was that I would be like Ron, who would be like panicking and flailing and freaking out, right? Like I'm so uncomfortable because of the chronic pain symptoms that are showing up. I'm so uncomfortable because of IBS. I'm so uncomfortable in my body and I'm reacting as though I'm unsafe. I'm reacting, I'm adding fuel to the fire. So building again exactly on what I was saying last time, it's like my symptoms would come up and I would panic and I would freak out. And what that means in my body, this is the important part, okay? What that means in my body is that I would get even more contracted and even more tense and even more tight. And it's like, honestly, no wonder I couldn't take a shit. No wonder my digestion was so fucked up. No wonder, because it was meeting fear with fear. It was meeting contraction with contraction. And that's what's happening physiologically. And so I remember the first time I presented this to Nicole. And, Nicole's like, what are you teaching at the retreat? And I was like, well, I want to include this scene from Harry Potter. and so I remember showing it to her and being like, I'm Ron, right? And then I used to say to Nicole that she was Hermione. She was the one who would come in and be like, just relax, just be whatever about it. Just like, try on the energy of like not caring. And I would be like, I can't do that. Like, how am I supposed to do that? And then, so that was like the dynamic. And I remember when I showed it to her and she was just like, you have to show this at the retreat because this is exactly the embodiment of what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to teach you and support you with is having these moments of so much discomfort and not reacting as though you're unsafe. And if you can practice that, that's why so many people I think have told me that being able to see this scene has been so supportive, because when you have the visual of Hermione being like, wrapped around by these vines that can kill her, and you see the way she closes her eyes and takes a deep breath, it's like that is what we are going for. Okay. So that's the devil's snare scene. And that to me is so important because it is, again, the embodiment piece of radical acceptance and non-attachment. So if we are, again, going to talk about intentional weight loss, we're going to talk about making changes. You want to go where you want to go. It is so foundational that you have this kind of in your head as part of the framework, as part of the groundwork, ultimately. The other thing that I will add about that is I don't know, I never thought that I would share this publicly, but again, at this point, it's like, whatever. So one of the ways that my IBS symptoms used to show up is I would feel, okay, so I'm going to talk about poop, which is totally fine for me, but if you're weird about it, this is your trigger warning. The way that I would struggle, like the symptom that I would have very often is that I would like feel like I needed to go to the bathroom, but I couldn't do it. And so this is where the devil's snare kind of came from for me, where it felt like my body was so contracted and tight. And all I wanted was to be able to like release a bowel movement from my body. And it was really uncomfortable. And the thing that I want to share with you and add is the saying that you hear all the time from me, you're uncomfortable, you're not unsafe, really came from, I remember exactly what toilet I was sitting on when this came to me, because it was exactly this. It was exactly this idea of I was feeling like my body was devil's snare, and then I was watching myself react like Ron. I was watching myself like freak out and panic, and I remember noticing in that moment, like, Lisa, you are reacting as though this is going to kill you. And the truth is, it's not. It's very uncomfortable, and it's valid that you're uncomfortable. But this is not a saber-toothed tiger, and you are reacting as though it is. And I remember being like, oh, but I hate it so much. And the conversation I had with me, myself, my higher self, God, I don't know, it was like, I hate this so much. I'm so uncomfortable. And it was like, okay, you're allowed to be uncomfortable. You can tolerate discomfort, but make no mistake, you're not going to die from this. So it's not helping you to react as though you're going to die from this. And then I remember just being like, oh, but I hate it so much. But I want, and this is where so much of this comes from. The last episode is like, I know what it feels like to be like, but I want to feel better. I want to feel more comfortable. And it was like, yeah, of course you do. It's okay that you do. And you reacting with fear, you perpetuating the anxiety around it, you fighting devil's snare, right? It's only going to kill you faster, quote unquote, Hermione Granger. It's only going to make it worse. It's only going to add more contraction. And so that's really where that came from. And I remember it was really a spiritual awakening in that moment. And I've joked before that like 85% of my spiritual awakenings have happened on the toilet for this reason, because this is a spiritual journey of healing. And first it was my weight and food and body, and then it was chronic pain. And that is why they overlap in so many ways. And that is why I know so much of what I know about this, because I have lived it. So anyway, so that's what I want you to understand about all of this. And now I know I'm talking about IBS, I'm talking about chronic pain, but the reason we're having this conversation here is because the exact same thing is true for your weight and your body. Now, having said all of that, here's another visual that I've had specifically in relation to weight loss. And I have never shared this yet, but it was a long time ago that this came to me. And the reason that it feels so true and real is because it has come up so many times since then. So I'm going to do my best to explain this, but the visual that I have is like if someone who is wanting weight loss, but I'm not even going to say wanting weight loss. Like I'm going to specifically say someone who is in a bigger body and according to the BMI chart, something like morbidly obese. So me, many years ago, I always will just think of and use myself as an example. Okay. So if someone like me came to me now, so if someone like me back then came to me now and was like, I want to lose weight, and they were panicking about it, the visual that I get is almost as though this person is in a room. Maybe you've heard me describe this before, but a visual that I get frequently, especially when I'm anxious or panicking, is like I'm in a room and it's on fire and I can't find the exit. And so I imagine that this person who is in a bigger body, who wants to lose weight, it feels like being in a room where it's on fire, you can't find the exit. Okay. So what I find so fascinating about it is that when it came to me, I realized, and what I know to be true and what I'm trying to articulate here is that the only way for the exit to appear is if your body calms down first. And this is the paradoxical theory of change that I talked about episodes ago. That, right, in order for things to be different, you have to first be where you are. Transformation begins with a radical acceptance of what is. You have to feel safe in your body as it is before it can be different, before you can consciously make decisions to change it, things like that, right? And so it's like this irony that is so clear to me in this visual that if someone is saying, I have to get out, and I'm not talking about like, okay, so in this visual, it's like I have to get out of this room. It's on fire. I'm going to die here. But that is representing how we feel often in our bodies. I have to get out of here. I have to get out of here. I have to get out of here. It has to be different in order for me to survive, in order for me to be okay. And what I'm saying to you is, as you panic about the situation, that is you adding fuel to the fire. That is you wrestling with devil's snare. That is perpetuating the wrestling match. And as long as you are doing that, you're blocking the exit. You're blocking the exit of the room that you're trying so hard to get out of. And that is, again, it's so clear to me. And so when I think about how do we approach and address this conversation of intentional weight loss, if someone wants to lose weight and it would arguably improve their health and quality of life and things like that. Well, the beginning of the whole thing is you have to stop panicking about it. And that's that, like, I literally have this visual of going into that room, and this is the coaching that I get to do. That is, there is an exit, there can be a way out. And in order for you to find it, in order for us to get you out of here, first you need to regulate your nervous system and ultimately come back into a parasympathetic state where your brain understands that you are safe to be here. It is exactly the devil's snare visual, only I see it as a room being on fire. So that is the thing, is like, if you are someone who maybe is in a bigger body, but also, like, if you're someone that just wants to lose weight and you want to do it in a way that is safe, healthy, aligned, and sustainable, the first thing you have to pay attention to is how are you being in the room? How are you being in the room? The room is on fire. How are you being in it? Right? You fell into the pile of devil's snare. How are you reacting? Are you grappling with it? Are you trying to fight it? Or are you taking a deep breath, closing your eyes, and letting yourself be released from it? That's up to you. But that's the first thing you want to pay attention to, because, again, as long as you are panicking, the same is true, especially those of you that come here knowing this with chronic pain, the same exact thing is true with your weight in your body. It is okay that you want it to change. It is not going to change if you continue to panic. And this is another thing Nicole Sachs says all the time. It's not an epidemic of pain, it's an epidemic of fear. Okay? So this is where, again, you can practice just fake it till you make it. Just fake it till you make it. Embody the energy of it. And so imagine that you are in this room. It's on fire, sure. But as you practice doing exactly what Hermione Granger did, and you relax the muscles in your body and you embody safety, that is what allows the exit to appear. And then we get to take steps to get out of the situation. And the reason I'm saying this and, like, really breaking it down is because I genuinely believe this is such a core concept to understand for something like intentional weight loss, because this is what makes it possible. This is exactly what makes it possible, like I said in the last episode, and I've been saying over and over again, to be exactly where you are as you are while also moving forward. This practice is what it looks like and feels like to accept where you are as you are while also simultaneously making changes for it to be different. And so this is why it really doesn't work for me to say, just stop wanting to lose weight, or just stop trying to lose weight, or just accept yourself as you are and, release the goal of weight loss. That doesn't really work for me as someone who has been over 300 pounds. There's too much at stake. There's too much at stake. Physically, physiologically, socially, emotionally. No, like, that doesn't work for me. And it also doesn't work, right? That's the anti-diet side of things. Like, just stop wanting it, or just stop pursuing it. Just release the goal. No, thank you. If that works for you, then that works for you. But it doesn't work for me. So, no, thank you. But the other side is also not true, right? The diet culture side misses the mark just as much, because the message there is just lose weight. Do whatever you have to do to get the weight off your body. And it's like, that is also not going to be safe and sustainable. And so this, to me, again, is the crux of it all, is if we can get this and we can practice this, and again, we can embody this, now we are talking about feeling safe as we are to move forward where we want to go. We can feel scared. We can feel scared and regulate the energy of fear in the room that is on fire. Fake it till you make it, embody it till you habituate, so we can get out. And so this so nuanced. It's such gray area, but I think, again, it's really important, because now there's a path, right? There's a whole path, and that we need that. And so like another thing that I pulled up, this actually was in the slides for my class this week. So right now I'm back in school, and right now I'm in the trauma-informed interventions class. And so this is so aligned to everything I'm talking about, like physiology and the nervous system and polyvagal theory. Okay. So the one of the quotes that was in the slides for this week was, anything is bearable as long as you know that it's going to come to an end. And that is a quote by Bessel van der Kolk, who wrote The Body Keeps the Score. Okay. Anything is bearable as long as you know that it's going to come to an end. And so this is why, if you listen to the intentional weight loss episodes from years ago, one of the things that I do and I include in my coaching program are the 3 levels, like what I call the 3 levels. And the third out of 3 levels is where intentional weight loss comes in. Okay. And so the point here is that when you're in level 1, which is essentially not using food like a drug, it's emotional sobriety, it's practicing abstinence from compulsive emotional eating, whether it's overeating or undereating. You learned all about that already, the dieting addiction as well. So level 1 is like reconnecting your mind and body. Level 2 is taking a reconnected mind-body system and applying it specifically to food. So you're looking at the quality of food, you're practicing the division of responsibility, you're setting boundaries with yourself. I'm not going to go in detail into all of this, but it does exist on this podcast if you want to go back for it. But then the third level is where now we could talk about intentional weight loss and like clean eating and, things like that, fat loss. Okay. So, but the whole point, the reason I'm saying this is because when people first start the coaching program or they come in and they want weight loss, what I do is just orient to the whole path that's in front of us. Because if we go straight into intentional weight loss before you have any idea how to feel your feelings without using like food as a drug, that again is not really going to work. So if we're talking about a lifelong sustainable approach to the chronic condition of you being in your body, we have to know that there is some groundwork that needs to happen first in the relationship you have with yourself, the relationship you have with your body, feeling safe, all of those things. That's groundwork. But you also deserve to know that intentional weight loss is part of the process. Like, we're going to get there. And I think it's really valid to it's I don't know if that's the word, but it's important. It feels important to me as someone who has been in such a bigger body and struggling with weight. It feels important to be able to acknowledge that weight loss is okay. Intentional weight loss is possible and okay. We're just not there yet. Like, we need an orientation to where it fits into the whole thing. And that's the purpose with all of this. And that's why I think about being in this room that's on fire and wanting an exit. It's like, you have to know, right? If I say to you, just relax, just calm down, it's like, but I need to get out of here. I need my pain to be healed. I need to lose weight. I need it to be different. And if all I'm saying to you is just relax where you are, that's not to me as helpful as saying, if you relax where you are, we'll be able to get you out of here. Like, that's like, oh, okay. So this is part of the way out, right? This is part of finding an exit. Okay, well, now I can practice relaxing, even though I feel really scared, right? Even though I feel like this devil snare is going to kill me, I can close my eyes and take a deep breath and just practice surrendering, because anything is bearable as long as you know it's going to come to an end. And I think that matters a lot, and that's ultimately what I'm saying to you is we have to do level 1 and 2 first. We have to do all of this groundwork, but it's all with the intention of helping you get out of the situation that you feel trapped in. And now I'm not going to also get too into this because I'm starting to think that this topic needs its own podcast episode, probably many, the topic of GLP-1s. But I just want to kind of insert here that this concept is part of the reason that I partially support the use of a GLP-1 as a tool. And I have feelings all over the conversation about GLP-1s, pros, cons, concerns, whatever. And that's why I'm like, I'm not going to get into all that because that's really not what I came here to say. But this is exactly why there's a part of me that really gets it, because I do think that when I'm not going to speak for anyone else, that when I think about what it was like to be in a 300-pound body, that is extremely stressful. And I've talked about here in so many episodes the trauma that comes with that, the very real trauma of living in a bigger body, not to mention things like, I think about the stress fractures that I got in my feet. My body was literally breaking under the weight it was carrying. It is stressful physically, emotionally, mentally, socially. It's a scary fucking life. It was for me. And so I really empathize with feeling like your body, like feeling trapped in a body the way that you would feel trapped in a room that's on fire where you can't find the exit. I empathize with that. I understand that. I get that. And I do think that it's fair to use something like a GLP-1 to help you find the exit. The GLP-1 is not the exit, in my opinion. The GLP-1 is not the exit. But I do think that if you're using a GLP-1 to support you in, quieting the flames of the fire enough so that you can figure out how to get out, then that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that that's really valid. I think a lot of people are using the GLP-1 as the exit. And I think that'll be a conversation for another day. But this is, the point here is that the panic is what we need to pay attention to. And I do think that sometimes for some people, if there is a lack, especially of other support systems and other techniques and modalities, that the GLP-1 serves that function of helping you take a deep breath to get out, knowing that there's an end can make it possible for you to feel safe in it where you are. So, okay, that's just a little brief sidebar, but we can come back to that conversation. Okay, so now I want to tell you about a conversation I had with someone recently. One of my clients was asking me about this intentional weight loss this last year and how I felt, what I was thinking and experiencing before I began. And what she asked me was like, did you want to change your body? And I said to her, well, again, just as like a reminder for everyone, the reason that I started engaging in this intentional weight loss was because I had gained weight. It wasn't like out of nowhere. And it was decidedly different than the first time I talked about intentional weight loss. I think there's 4 of those episodes from a few years ago. When that happened, that was emotional. I was going through a really hard time emotionally right after a breakup also. And that was a really, really hard time. And I gained weight from eating emotionally, drinking, like so much of just, it was emotional. It was emotional. It was emotional. So I knew at that time that what I needed to do to not maintain, regulate my weight and lose some of it was I needed to address it emotionally. I knew that the root of it was an emotional thing, and I needed to, start coping with my coping mechanisms that were ultimately healthy and going to help me. And so anyway, so years ago, the weight gain and the weight loss was really handled from the emotional, in the emotional realm, let's say. This time around, it was very different than that. This time around, it was weight gain from holidays, from living, from life, from eating and drinking and seeing a lot of friends and having a lot of plans and traveling. And like, it was just like life weight gain. And so I got to a point where I probably put on like 5 or 10 pounds. My clothes were getting like snug. I wasn't weighing myself, but that is where this all started. And so I remember thinking to myself, I didn't gain weight from emotional eating. I gained weight from living my life. And so I had an opportunity to address it more in the physical dimension. And that is what started all of this. Was like I just wanted to lose the weight that I had gained. And then I still wasn't weighing myself at all, but I started feeling a difference. And then I just kept feeling like I know what I'm doing. And I want to, as I have said before, I wanted to run the experiment on myself. I remember feeling like, all right, this is good. I lost the few pounds that I put on, but I want to see what happens if I keep going. Do I know how to do this? Do I really know how to do this the way that I think I do? And turns out, yes. So that's how it all started, okay? But the reason that I go all the way back to the beginning is because I want to be really clear about my answer to this question that my client asked me. Did you want to change your body? Well, I wanted to feel more comfortable living in my body. But it wasn't so much about wanting to change the way my body looked. I had gained weight. My clothes were tight. That was uncomfortable. I didn't look that different. Like it wasn't that was driving the bus. But I did want to look different. I did want to lose weight for the aesthetic, aesthetically. I did. And so that's something I also want to talk about. But the beginning of my weight loss, again, the reason I'm going back to this is because I also was doing the mirror work challenge like around this time. And the mirror work challenge was a 7-day experience that I created, and a lot of people signed up for it, and it was really a wonderful experience. And I got a lot of great feedback from the people that actually showed up to do it. And it was journal prompts and guidance for mirror work. But again, the reason I'm telling you all of this in the context of my intentional weight loss is because what I was doing, and you can scroll back through my Instagram to find this and to see the videos that I'm talking about. But what I was doing was I was taking these videos of what it looked like when I sat down in front of the mirror with no posing or anything, like just like completely naturally. I would sit down in like a sports bra and sweatpants or something in front of the mirror. And I was taping myself doing this. And the reason I was taping myself doing it is because you can see when I sat down, like the rolls of fat that are normal and natural. And the reason that I was doing this is because what I was showing and modeling and demonstrating was that I could look in the mirror and be completely relaxed in my body and feel and experience, embody the energy of safety. And it felt so important and powerful. And I kept hearing that it was, because most of what we are conditioned to do, and we're doing this without any awareness most of the time, it is so habitual that we sit down in front of the mirror. Or, I mean, a lot of us are not even looking in the mirror. We're not even going in the mirror. Not only are we not going in the mirror, we are doing everything we can to avoid the mirror. And so the reason that this felt really important and powerful to demonstrate is because I could sit in front of the mirror and I could see my body, and I could see all the things that I was told or taught by this culture are bad or wrong, or I should be embarrassed of, or I should be ashamed of. And I could hold the energy of safety in my body as I saw myself. And the reason that I was making these videos was because of exactly what I'm telling you. That is, so many people want to be losing weight intentionally, but they do not feel safe when they are in their body as it is right now. So I am certain that a lot of the reason this experience of intentional weight loss was not just possible, but, as you've heard me say, relatively easy, is because this is how I live my life. This is how I live my life. I was not just making videos of me and my natural body and the rolls of fat you can see when I sit down. I wasn't just making those videos and posting them on the internet because I felt safe to do that, but that is how I live my life. And I notice it very often when I'm at the gym, because now I do my own laundry and I have to pay for my laundry. So the reason I say that is because, if it's warm enough in the gym and I don't need to wear a shirt, like, I will be working out in a sports bra and leggings. And so my belly can sometimes be out, especially if I'm on like a leg press or like a machine. Like, if I'm on any machine, and what I notice, and I'm so aware of it, is that if I don't want to say like the quote unquote normal person, but I know that is the truth. The average person, woman especially, it's like I'm so aware of the way that most people, women especially, will sit down on a machine, see their body, and then contort themselves into all different positions, pull up their pants, pull their shirt down, hide themselves because they feel unsafe to be seen as they are. And I'm so aware of the way I don't do that. I don't do that. And that's because I feel safe in my body as it is. I don't always feel comfortable, but I feel safe. And I also feel safe with other people seeing me, because if other people judge me for what I look like, that's their shit. What other people think of you is none of your business. That is what I think when I'm at the gym. What other people think of me is none of my business. Do I care? Like I said very early on in this series, your higher self doesn't give a fuck what other people are thinking about you. So when I'm at the gym and I have this thought go through my head, the rolls of fat in my belly, what if other people see it? What if they do? What if they do? What if they do? Well, what if other people judge it? What if they do? Nothing. I wouldn't even know. If they were judging my body, I wouldn't even know. It would make no difference to me at all. It wouldn't impact my life at all. So all it could do is get in the way of me getting the most out of this workout. Yeah, I'm not doing that. No. And so, again, the reason I'm telling you this is because if what you want is something like intentional weight loss, but every single time you perceive your own body, you start reacting as though it's a predator, that is the first step. That is the first thing for you to pay attention to. I say this with so much love. I'm telling you all this because I care about you. You have no business trying to change your body if you can't even look at it and feel safe? Period. Hard stop. So now I want to like almost just invite you to consider for a moment. And this could be, you can make this your optional homework assignment for this week too. But like, think about if you were to, okay, this would be a good homework assignment. If you were to think about embodying the person you want to be, right? Not the person that you are right now. If you were to try on who is the person I want to be, what would she do, and what does that look like for me? What would that look like in your life? What would that look like? How would you show up if you did feel safe, right? Fake it till you make it, embody it until you habituate to it. What would it look like for you to show up if you felt totally safe in your body as it is, with yourself and with other people? How would you carry yourself? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you move? How would you breathe? How would you breathe? And the reason I stop and say that is because I know, and I know because I've lived it, that the fear, anxiety, pressure, terror, panic that some of us have about how we look and how other people see us is enough to activate sympathetic arousal in the body, fight or flight, which means shortness of breath or holding your breath. Okay, so it goes that deep. It goes that deep, and this is what we're not paying attention to. So how would you breathe if you felt safe in your body? How would you breathe if you felt safe being seen by other people in your body? And again, it's a thought experiment. And first we could just start there. How would you breathe? How would you move? How would you talk to yourself and other people? How would you carry yourself through your life if you felt safe in your body and safe to be seen in your body? Okay, that's what you want to look at. And then the other part of that homework assignment would be, how is that different than the way you're showing up right now? Okay, so even the tiniest things, like you sit down on a machine at the gym and all of a sudden you start finagling so that your body, your rolls of fat can't be seen and you're hiding, that's an example of how you are essentially demonstrating to your brain that you are not safe. You are not safe in your body. You're not safe to be seen. We have to hide. And again, a lot of us do this without even knowing it. And so that's something to pay attention to, because that distinction between the way you're showing up now and the way that you would show up if you did feel safe, right? Live as if, just try it on. That's what you want to pay attention to. That is what you want to pay attention to first and foremost if what you want is something like intentional weight loss. Because going back to the other thing that we talked about, the I'll be happy when trap, is really I will be safe when. That's what's happening in the brain, okay? So when you tell yourself, I can finally relax, I can finally take a deep breath, I can breathe deeply only after I lose the weight, only after I'm different, only after, if that's always what's happening, then you are in the trap ultimately of making your life really small, because it's full of hiding, it's full of isolating, it's full of this story that you are not safe to be in connection with other people, that you are not safe to be seen by other people and known by other people, and very often including yourself. So it is very much, again, the same as chronic pain, where if, for example, you're experiencing chronic pain symptoms, you practice being whatever about it, trying on the energy of safety, breathing through it, and then going to, that event or doing that thing or seeing that person or whatever it is that you could say, I'm in too much pain. I have to stay home. I'm in too much pain. I have to lie in bed. I'm in too much pain. I can't do it. This is it. It shows up exactly the same with our body and our weight, where, it's like, I'm not going to that thing because I can't be seen. I don't want to encounter that person because what if they judge me for what I look like all of these things. And then your life gets really small because you're not going out and you're not living. But all of that is rooted in the belief system ultimately that you, again, are not safe. And that is not true. You may not be comfortable, but you are safe. So I want to talk a little bit about how to do this, how to really do this, because this, again, this is like step one. This is step one, is first you have to be where you are. First, you have to be in your body as it is, as part of the path toward intentional weight loss. So what sometimes gets lost or gets missed in a conversation around this is we can have the tendency, like I've mentioned before, to throw ourselves into the deep end. And sometimes that works for some people, but it doesn't always work all the time. And it makes sense why, because it doesn't feel safe to do that. So what I mean by that is if we are, let's use the example, this comes up all the time, of like going to the beach and wanting to like wear a bikini or like wanting to put on a bathing suit, but not feeling safe to do that. Okay. So what I mean by we have a tendency to sometimes throw ourselves into the deep end is, let's say that you have all this fear and anxiety and insecurity about putting on a bathing suit and going to the beach. To throw yourself into the deep end would be how I used to live my life. Like I talked about in the previous episode, where it's like I would quote unquote feel the fear and do it anyway, but I would dissociate from the fear and do it anyway. I would just jump right in. So my way of doing it in the past would be I would talk to myself and say, oh, you're scared of wearing a bathing suit? Well, fuck that. Do it anyway. and, do the scary thing. And so I would put on the bathing suit and I would go to the beach and I would essentially dissociate the whole time because I wasn't really present with my feelings about any of it. I was doing the scary thing, which was very helpful because in a lot of ways, my brain did get to learn that I could put on a bathing suit and survive, but we don't want to do it that way. We don't want to do it that way. So here's how you want to do it. If this resonates with you and you are in a place of not looking at your body, not allowing yourself to be present in your body, hiding from other people because of your body, you want to think about, once again, fetus steps. Fetus steps, baby steps, okay? So you walk yourself over to the shallow end of the pool and you take one step at a time. And so what that might mean is, let's say you go to the beach, you lay your towel on the beach, you're wearing your bathing suit, but you have your cover up on. Your cover up brings you some safety and comfort, and that is what you feel good in, okay? So you lay your towel on the beach, and then you sit there with yourself for a moment, and you do essentially exactly what I talked about in the last episode, where you consider, okay, this feels scary. This feels scary. I'm thinking about, here I am at the beach in my bathing suit, and I'm contemplating taking off the cover up and being on the beach in my bathing suit alone. And that feels scary. That feels whatever it feels to you, embarrassing, that feels threatening, that feels vulnerable. This is all very vulnerable. And you do exactly what I did, where maybe you, again, take a deep breath, close your eyes, put a hand on your heart, and you acknowledge, I know that this feels scary. It's okay. It's okay that you're scared. Right? And then there's going to be a part of you that's like, but what if other people see me? And that's where you get to say, that's okay. I know that you're scared of what other people might think. And it's okay that you're scared of what other people might think. Okay? I'm here with you. I see you. You're not alone. we're going to do it. And it's okay to be scared. We're not going for fearless. We're going for brave. So we can take a moment to practice bravery. This is fierce self-compassion, right? And we can remind ourselves that this is not life-threatening. And when I say fetus step, I literally mean maybe what you do is you go to the beach, you have this conversation with yourself, you're regulating your system, you feel scared, you tolerate your fear, and then for a moment you say, okay, all right, I'm going to be brave, I'm going to do this scary thing. I'm going to take off my cover up. And you take off your cover up for like 5 seconds. And then maybe you put it back on. And then maybe that's your exposure therapy for the day. And then the next time you go to the beach, maybe you take your cover up off for 10 seconds or 30 seconds or a minute. Or maybe you find that you take your cover up off, and because you're staying present with yourself and you're like, wow, this is really scary and I feel so motherfucking exposed. Holy shit, there's a lot of energy moving through my body. Let me remember, take deep breaths, slow myself down. This is uncomfortable. This is not unsafe. There is no saber-toothed tiger here. You might find that you do that for about 60 to 90 seconds, and then you move through the tidal wave of emotional energy, and you arrive on the other side where you look around and you realize, you're okay. You're okay. You took off your cover up. You're on the beach in your bathing suit. There is no saber-toothed tiger. And hey, this actually feels kind of nice. This feels kind of good. Maybe I'll just hang out here on my blanket, in my bathing suit for a while. Maybe that happens. Okay? But the point I'm making here is, if what you want is something like intentional weight loss, and you are still avoiding, denying, ignoring, neglecting, dissociating from your body every chance you get, that this is what has to happen first. And the way that this gets messed up a lot of the time is, again, you just kind of like breezing through it in denial of all of your fear. That's not a sustainable approach. So it really is, it's important to have an exposure therapy mindset about it. To me, what you're being exposed to little by little is your body and other people seeing your body. That's what you're exposing yourself to. So it really makes sense if it needs to go, very gradually and incrementally. This is really a trauma-informed way of doing it. You can't overwhelm your system, right? Again, this is why all the foundation was the foundation, right? You can't put yourself in your danger zone. You have to put yourself in your learning zone. So you're out of your comfort zone, but you're not too far. That's how this happens. So I'm just like reading through my notes. This is the foundation. So it's worth investing in. And that, I think, is also important to just explicitly say, because I can imagine that if you especially are in a bigger body and you want weight loss and it feels so threatening and dangerous for you to even acknowledge your body as it is or see yourself as you are right now, that it can be really frustrating to have to practice living as if first. But that is the foundation if what you want is the weight loss to actually be sustainable and for you to feel safe when the weight is off your body. So that's why I say it's worth investing in, because this is the beginning of the whole, again, path. So as I've already said, but I'm reading my notes again, if you can't even look in the mirror and bear witness to your body, you have no business trying to change it, respectfully. Okay, so that's the idea. And this is also why, to me, tender self-compassion is so also the foundation and the root of a lot of this, because if what you want is safe and healthy and sustainable weight loss, this is all about being where you are and being accepting of where you are. But again, not just in theory, in behavior. You have to show up in your life this way. You have to behave this way so that, again, your brain learns that you actually are safe. So you're accepting yourself. You're practicing the tender self-compassion of accepting yourself to alleviate your suffering. But again, now you can probably see how it comes together. You're not just accepting yourself to alleviate your suffering. You're accepting yourself to alleviate your suffering so you can go where you want to go. Tender self-compassion, to me, in this context, is the prerequisite. It's like you have to be accepting of where you are as you are. And you also get to know that it's just step one so that things can be different moving forward. And then the other thing that I wrote in my notes, sometimes, okay, so what happens is like I write my thoughts, and my thoughts in their most like raw, unfiltered sense can be so, what's the word? I don't want to say aggressive, but I just, I have to get it out of my head. So it's like blunt. It can feel kind of harsh. And then when I go through it, I'm like, I have to soften this language a little bit. But what I wrote is, if you refuse to practice this, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Hard stop. And I mean that, it's like, if you are in this place of like, I don't want to accept where I am. I don't want to take baby steps to feel safe in my body as it is. I just need it to be different. I need it to be different. I need it to be different. Right? Give me another diet. I'm going on another cleanse. Give me another challenge. If that's where you are shooting yourself in the foot. Hard stop. And it's like, how many times have we run that experiment, right? Of like trying weight loss with that energy of urgency to get out. Just, I got to get out. I got to get out. I got to get out. Well, okay. Here's an alternative approach. It's the baby steps to practice being where you are and feeling safe where you are. Because again, if you refuse to practice this, you are getting in your own way. And I'm reading now the rest of the sentence. I know you don't want to hear this, and I'm also sorry it's true, but someone needs to help you get out of your own way. That is what this is about, is if you want this in a way that is going to feel good to you, this is how it's done. So there's just a couple closing thoughts for today. I really hope all this made sense so far. The first is that I've brought up the mirror work challenge, and if you want access to that, I really should know this. I think it's on the link in my Instagram bio. I'm pretty sure it's definitely on the website. Or you could just email me, lisaschlossberg@gmail.com, and be like, I'm listening to your podcast. Can I have the mirror work challenge? Because if you're listening to this and it resonates and you're like, you know what, I really do want my body to change. I really do want to lose weight. And I'm also the person that avoids every mirror like the fucking plague. This is where to start. Here's a free resource that I have created for you. So I would start with that. And that's really, again, the why this was created in the first place. Was because I just kept seeing over and over again that I wanted intentional weight loss, but I feel safe seeing and being myself. And I feel safe with other people seeing me as I am. And that's why it has been so possible and easy. And so again, I want that for you. I want you to be able to experience that, and it will help you do that. So that's that. Now, the other thing that I want to say about all this is that as much as I'm saying, do the mirror work challenge and things like that, go to the beach and wear your bathing suit and take off your cover up and like little exposure therapy moments like that. I also feel like this would be so incomplete if I didn't acknowledge that we need other people. We need safe people. We need safe communities. We need safe relationships as part of the healing journey. Like, you can't, I don't think, do all the mirror work in the world feeling safe to be seen by yourself in your own body and then have that be the end of the story. We have an animal brain in a social context. We can't leave out the social context. So on one hand, like, yes,
do things like the mirror work on this in your relationship with yourself. Practice seeing your own body, like even just like in the shower, in the bath, like when you're changing, can you see your body and not run away from it? Or can you see your body and notice the emotional reaction you're having to it and just allow yourself to have those feelings? Like, can you expose yourself to yourself slowly, gradually, can you do that, right? That's part of it. But again, it's so incomplete to not acknowledge we need people. Okay. And so just going back to what I shared a few episodes ago, right? Radical acceptance of what transformation begins with the radical acceptance of what is. Okay. Well, transformation then begins with the grieving of what isn't. And so a lot of this, of accepting yourself as you are, is also going to require grieving what you're not. And it's okay for you to feel grief around, the body that you don't have, or the body that you used to have, or the body that you want to have, or the weight, whatever it is. Like, it's okay for you to feel hard feelings and move through the stages of grief for the purpose of practicing acceptance of where you are so that you can get things to be different in the future. Okay. But I'm bringing this all together because what I want to say about that is it reminds me of a conversation I had on a podcast episode I recorded weeks ago that you won't hear for a while because apparently I just can't shut the fuck up when it comes to this solo series and there's too much to say. So we're getting there eventually, but I had this incredible conversation with another clinician, teacher, educator, so powerful. And like, I was in tears. I was in tears for so much of the conversation. I'm very excited to share with you, but we're going to get there. But I wrote down one of the quotes from the woman, Rachel, that I was talking to, because it was just so, it really, really hit me. And as I was like organizing my thoughts for this episode today, I was brought back there. And I'm going to just read you this quote. What she said was, "One thing I believe and know about grief in particular is that grief cannot be metabolized in isolation." It's sort of this irony of, in order to metabolize loss, I have to have enough connection. Otherwise, I cannot look at that. I cannot know that, because it's the kind of alone that is out in the wilderness by myself, alone. If we can't fall apart and be held, we're holding ourselves together, and that is reflected in the body. If we can't fall apart and be held, we're holding ourselves together, and that is reflected in the body. And her and I go on to then connect that whole conversation to body image and weight and emotional eating and all of that stuff. But the reason I'm bringing it here is because it's like, okay, if we want transformation, we have to radically accept what is. To radically accept what is, we have to grieve what isn't. Well, grief can't be metabolized alone. And I think it's really important to say you can do a lot of this work in the mirror. You can do a lot of this work alone. And we also need safe people and communities, right? So what I want to say is, yeah, go to the beach, lie your towel down, be in your bathing suit, take off your cover up, cool. And also, you know what would likely help you a lot in feeling safe to do that is doing it with a friend. Doing it with someone that you feel safe with. And even what I would suggest, if this is, again, resonating with you, to like what I would really do if I were listening to this and being like, wow, that's me, that's what I should do. I would hit up one of my friends and I would say, I'm really scared to wear a bathing suit at the beach. Will you come with me to do that? Like, I feel nervous. I feel anxious about this. And especially given some of our attachment styles, some people will find it way easier to do something like that alone. And some people will find it way easier to do that with another person they feel safe and comfortable with, safe and comfortable to be seen by. And that also, again, just it matters as part of this conversation. There's so much of this we can't do alone. And yes, there are people that might judge you based on what you look like. There are people that might even make comments about your body. I'm not going to argue that they don't exist. They do. They do exist. And that's what makes it so scary to live in a social context. I get that. But you don't hang out with those people. You hang out with the people that love you and see you for who you are. And you call up your friend and you say, I'm really scared to go to the beach in a bathing suit. Will you do this with me? And you want to do that with someone who's like, hell yeah, I'll do that with you. You know, like, you are so worthy of experiencing the beach in a bathing suit. Let's do it. And having support through other people is really non-negotiable as part of this work. It doesn't have to be every step of the way. It doesn't have to be all of it, you know, because then you don't want to also get into a situation where, okay, you feel safe being seen by other people, but you still can't look at yourself. You know, it's again a balance of all of it. But every time I think about, you know, how often I'm bringing up exposure therapy, like, one step at a time, take your baby step into your learning zone. You know, the exposure therapy video that I share in my curriculum in Module 5, that's another thing you could go to YouTube for if you're not familiar with it. Look up exposure therapy. And the point that I keep coming back to in this is the person who's going through exposure therapy is being guided by a therapist. They're not doing it alone. They're not doing it by themselves. And so I don't mean to turn this into another pitch for working with anyone. It doesn't have to be me, but I think at a certain point it is necessary. It's necessary because what we're really doing is you're rewiring your brain. You are healing this developmental trauma of the relationship you have with your body and the perception of yourself. And it is deep. It is deep. Like, if if that is not clear already, it is deep. And I find sometimes I really believe that this depth and magnitude is not something that we are designed to approach or navigate alone. It's just not. So that feels like my final thought here is it just would be so incomplete to not acknowledge that other people are really a part of it. The social context is really a part of it. And here's what it comes down to. In order for you to feel safe being seen by other people, it requires the exposure of being seen by safe people. In order for you to feel safe being seen by other people, it requires you feeling safe, you being seen by safe people. And that is the thing, is like, your brain learns that there are people out there that can see you and love you, see you and accept you, see you and not judge you. We need that. We need that. So that's that. I think that's going to be my last thought for today. So, wow. Cool. I hope, as always, that all made sense. I am going to, as usual, we'll be back next week, and we will continue. We will continue the conversation. But this is, again, now we're getting into it. Now we're getting into the real stuff. This was step 1. So I really hope you can practice some of your homework. If you do, please do let me know how it goes. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, reactions, feedback, always welcome. LisaSchlossberg@gmail.com. Rate, review, subscribe to the pod if you haven't yet. And also, you know what? More than that, more than I want you to rate, review, and subscribe to the pod, share it. Share it. If there are people in your life that need this or would benefit from this, I believe in the global revolution of Out of the Cave. So that's what I will ask, is that if this is serving you and supporting you and you have other people in mind, hit that share button, baby. Let's get it out there. All right, so that's it. That's it. I have to go to therapy in a few minutes, so I'm going to go do that. I hope you have the most wonderful week of your life, and I'll see you next time.